Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's Ann Metcalf here in Tsawwassen, British Columbia, and welcome. It's a beautiful day. Just take a deep breath in. And I'm just wondering, those of you who watched last week, if you actually made the garam masala. I've been enjoying mine all week long on different foods, putting in some tea, all sorts of things. So if you've been playing with it, let me know what you've done with your garam masala. And so today's a slightly different topic, and it's something I've been curious about for a while, actually. Uh, and it's on a somewhat more serious note, the staff of life, the bread we eat, the pasta. And I've heard stories of people going off to Europe and they have gut issues and they enjoy the breads, the pastas, the croissants, and they don't have any issue. They actually feel better. Like, why does that happen? So it got me curious. And so that's what our talk is going to be about today. So as we're living these, working on the living of conscious eating, conscious living, and when we make choices consciously, when we have the information, and what do we do about it? Do we do the same old, or do we make changes? And sometimes those changes are for ourselves, for our family, and sometimes for some people it may be more of an activist role. And whatever that is for you, let's just carry on. And before we do that, I'm going to, we'll start with just something a bit different. As always, it's our connection with the earth. We just take a deep breath in, connect with the earth. It's our source of food, the nurturing and life. And letting all our loving light flow into the earth and into these Rosie's Hope Chests. And the Rosie's Hope Chest, the Rosie is remembering our soul's innate expression. And the hope is humanity's open-hearted, peaceful earth. Because we can strive to be in that place where we are creating peace within ourselves and peace on the planet. And the Rosie's Hope Chests take all your loving thoughts and they get amplified by the earth and some help from the cosmos and through all the energy systems of the earth, like our chakras and our energy lines in our body. So get your cup of tea and let's begin. So what is it about the bread? Excuse me. What is it about that? And so I went into the research last night, and there's so many different, there's our gut microbiome, there's our lifestyle, there's our environment. And because each of us are unique in certain ways in the gut microbiome and in our lifestyle, there's no one pill cure. There's no one fix. So let's have a look. So what I found was Italian and European flours are made differently. They use a different kind of bread. There's the hard wheat and soft wheat, what I'll get into in a minute. And so there are some contributing factors. And it's a dilemma for those who have, for those who react quickly, they can feel it immediately. Like they just, it's like a brick in their gut, or they react in different ways. And for many of us, we don't react much at all. We just, bread's good. Toast in the morning, on our sandwiches, and pasta at nighttime. And we just keep doing that year after year. And we don't get that immediate response. And so it takes time for our body to actually send us those signals to saying the gut's been inflamed for years, and all of a sudden we don't feel very good. And so we need to look at that. Why is that? Why is that happening? Part of it is there's a disconnect with our body, our physical body, our head, our habits, and many other things. So let's have a look at some of the things that I discovered last night. And one is the folic acid fortified flour, the GMO or GE or genetically engineered foods. There's the Roundup Ready with Monsanto and other companies that add glyphosates, which cause health issues. Hybridized wheat, the lack of preservatives in a lot of European breads, and go organic. Watch those oats. So we're going to touch on a bit of that this morning. So according to one source, the Italian flour does not have to be fortified with folic acid, whereas in the United States and Canada, it must be fortified with synthetic folic acid by law. And that includes organic white flour and white rice. The problem is that 30% of the population has a genetic polymorphism or predisposition that prevents them from actually metabolizing folic acid. The most frequent complaint is profound fatigue. If this sounds like your reaction, then you need to avoid all folic acid and look into it. Research it for yourself. Be your own advocate. Natural folate in foods is fine, but the synthetic folic acid is added as a fortifier is not so good. So one suggestion, import your flour from Italy. Bake at home, check all your labels and your supplements. And currently, glyphosate is legal in both the United States and Italy and in Canada at levels of 5 parts per million. However, it is significantly less prevalent in European grain and is banned from some EU nations. Also, it's worth noting that when Italian importers discovered that Canadian grains had notable levels of glyphosate, they immediately cut back imports by almost 60%. So how we grow our food and how we want to be a part of that export realm, we need to pay attention to what we're putting in our food. And there's a really good link that I found. It's called As You Sow. And it's an organization that is actually taking some of these companies to task and the government in the United States. So I can post that on my Facebook page afterwards, but they're really pushing for labeling in different areas. And some information on the GE foods, the vast majority of genetically modified organisms grown in the U.S. are engineered to produce their own pesticide or survive direct application of pesticide, which is what Monsanto's Roundup Ready does. 2, survive the direct application of the glyphosate, which is the primary ingredient in Roundup. And it is the world's most heavily used herbicide. And in 2015, it was classified as a probable human carcinogen by the world's leading cancer authority. Widespread reliance on herbicide-dependent crops poses massive risks for biodiversity and soil health and the security of the entire food system. And we know with Percy Smyser, who's now passed, he was I think a Saskatchewan farmer growing canola, and he fought a long battle with Monsanto and their Roundup Ready, which the birds would, and the wind would bring onto his crop. It was a huge, huge issue. And bless Percy for all his work that he did. And for Canadians, Health Canada has allowed glyphosate at levels, wheat flour with a level of 5 parts per million, and wheat bran for a glyphosate of 15 parts per million. and they did an evaluation 2015 to 2017, and they assessed the potential human health risk of glyphosate from drinking water, food, occupational and bystander exposure, as well as environmental risk to non-target organisms, and determined that the levels found in food would not be a health risk to Canadians. And they have granted continued registration of products containing glyphosate for safe use in Canada. And this is actually the same Health Canada that will not enforce labeling of GMO GE foods on our food packaging, despite over 75% or more of Canadians who want to know it's in their food. And another point, our wheat has been hybridized, not the same as genetically engineered, but they've changed, they do this with a lot of our fruits and vegetables and the grains, and they just keep making it bigger, stronger, taller, and what's happening is it's got a higher gluten content than the original source. And 10,000 years ago, we started agriculture and we started using the grains. And according to Sayer G and Green Med Info, the 10,000-year-old change in our diet is like a microsecond in biological time. So our bodies haven't had time to adapt to the grain-based diet. And that's why the paleo ancestral movement is so powerful. It's acknowledging through an evolutionary lens that really the wheat and grains in general are a novel new type of food that comes with a pretty profound price on our health, especially chronic diseases. Now, the next thing is that there's two varieties of wheat that are used, both in Europe and in North America, but it's the percentage that they use. And we've got the hard red wheat and the soft wheat. And the soft wheat is comprising the majority of European wheat and now about 23% of American wheat. And contrary to what the name suggests, hard red wheat is actually responsible for the softer, fluffier, more protein-rich bread we Americans love, thanks to the less lovable ingredient, gluten. A huge factor in the quality of European wheat is the type of wheat and the way it's grown and harvested. And the quality of European soil may translate into the enzyme and nutrient density of the crops, which kind of makes sense. The American soil actually holds more of certain nutrients like selenium. So on to freshness, no preservatives. So these people who go to France and you have your croissants and your baguettes, when you buy them in the store, they are freshly made. And then baguettes especially, after it's been on the shelf for a day, that gets used into little croutons because it's not fresh anymore, because they don't put preservatives in their bread. And so, and we look at our bread, and I look at some of the bread I have, and I'm going, whoa, it sits in a plastic bag or in a bag of some kind on my counter for days, and some a couple of weeks, without the mold growing. And so whenever I get moldy bread, I'm going, yes, the sooner the better, because that mold is growing, but because of all the preservatives, it takes a long time. Whereas the European bread, a lot of them, there's no preservatives, and it just goes stale. And it would be a good experiment to try some French baguettes and Vancouver baguettes and see which one starts growing the mold best, because that's a really good test of its freshness. Now, what about the glyphosate? The glyphosate. You won't find it in the ingredient list on the food packages. It's grown in the plant itself. So I don't know how Health Canada or the FDA is going to deal with that one. But the use of pesticides such as Roundup, which is sprayed on the majority of our corn, soy, and wheat crops. And that's what proves problematic. They're sprayed in an effort to harvest more efficiently and increase the yield product. So it grows faster and they get more of it. But the active ingredient glyphosate has been undeniably linked to a huge spike in gluten sensitivity and diseases like celiac in recent years. And continued exposure to this chemical can lead to a whole laundry list of even more serious health problems. Not to mention the use of genetically modified ingredients in general are more heavily regulated, if not entirely illegal in most of Europe, making that simple sandwich that we have a lot less simple in the US as it might be overseas. Now, farmers use these herbicides, pesticides during the food production, and often used on fruit and vegetable crops, glyphosate-resistant crops like canola, corn, cotton, soybean, sugar beets, and wheat. So there's quite a few ingredients in there. Plants. Plantings, lawns, greenhouses, aquatic plants, and forest plantings on the non-agricultural aspect. And you can go to www.webmed.com, and they've got information on cancer and the glyphosate. And so the foods, just to repeat, you've got oatmeal, cereal, granola bars, snack bars have glyphosate. In one report from California scientists and the World Health Organization, 43 of 45 oat-based products tested had that in it. So your popular breakfast foods like old-fashioned oats and Cheerios have above, or they did when they tested, they had above average levels. It's also in your grain and bean products like pasta, buckwheat, barley, kidney beans, and chickpeas. And they also spray it on non-GMO crops like wheat, barley, oats, and beans to actually dry out the crops so they can harvest them sooner. So it gets into the food early in the food chain, and sort of before the raw food is harvested and before it's processed. So what it does, it comes back to you being your own advocate. Buy local, buy organic. And when you're buying local, ask the farmer, the producer. When you go to those farmers markets, those who are selling the grains and the vegetables and the fruits, they've grown it. And you cannot say you're organic. It goes through a 7-year process, so it's expensive. So if you know the farmer and you know that they don't use these pesticides and herbicides, then you can probably trust it. You can also do your muscle testing. You get out your pendulum and you say, does this food contain glyphosate? It's as simple as that. And you hold it, the food, if you've bought it, you bring it home and you just sort of clear your mind and say, okay, show me. Does this food contain glyphosate? And then for me, forward is my yes and backward is my no. So that's one way of testing your food. One, if it's right for you and if it's containing chemicals. And I'm going to play with that one a little bit more. So the other thing, grow your own food. There's so many varieties out there. There's seed saving days in different communities. Gather all those seeds and start planting. And you can grow your own beets, your own carrots, your Swiss chard, your spinach, your lettuces, your tomatoes. You can even grow seeds like quinoa. And I've grown, I think it was lentil before, a few years ago. And I just, kudos to all these farmers who harvest this, either by machine or by hand, because you're talking about teeny tiny seeds. And so play with that in your garden. Create barrels, make raised beds, and grow your own food. And even if it's just enough for some herbs and spices and a bit of for your salad, grow your own. And then you know that it's got your love into it as you're growing the food and watering. And then as you prepare it, you cook it, you've got even more love going into that food. And your body just sings. It just sings with all of that. So that kind of concludes my discussion on The wheat, I'm going to be much more conscious of what I eat. And the oats will need to be organic from now on. And there's a company in British Columbia, I think it's Folkestone Farms, and they grow all sorts of grains, old grains. They grow oats, and it's all organic, and they don't use any of that. So I know when I buy those oat groats, which I now can grind in my special blender, and I can turn that into a flour and create my own muffins and breads and add that kind of as filler if I'm making a vegetarian kind of hamburger kind of thing. So there's play with your food, know what's in it, and know that so that you are feeding your body the healthiest food so that it can thrive, so you can eat, play, and thrive. And your body, your mind, your spirit, and the earth will be much happier. So, wisdom of the heart cards. This is from Susan Howson, and this is the one I picked today. And it says, I am generous. And it says, I share my unique gifts and talents with others. So what are your unique gifts? Your sharing, your love, your expertise on something. You know, we all have different gifts. And just share them in the best way you can. And the other card, the one that I also enjoy, by Wisdom of the Heart cards, with Bodhi Simpson and Eva Goulet, their affirmations to connect your heart and mind. And it says, I am creative. And one other thing, I've got my teen program. It's like Spirit Camp for Teens, and that's going to happen June 21st, Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And the teens and I are going to make a teen version of a Rosie's Hope Chest for their families, for themselves. And so if you've got a teenager that's kind of feels connected to the earth, wants to kind of do something to help humanity or help the earth, go to rosiesjoy11@gmail.com, and I'll connect with you, and you can sign up, and I'll give you the link to Eva Goulet's Dancing Jaguar Inspirations, and they can sign up, and they will make their own version of a Rosie's Hope Chest. And so that, one other thing, and my app, Authentic Sacred Design, is getting a revamp. I'm just sort of changing things up a bit. And my first poetry book, The Universe Calls, Dance With Me, A Journey Into Love, that is in the process of publishing, hopefully this week. And so I'm excited about that. And you'll be able to find that on my app, my website. And you know what, everyone? Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here now and later. Just listening to my talk about how we can live more consciously, raising our consciousness so that we can assist our planet, humanity, and the universe beyond. Until next time, have a beautiful day. Thank you.